Back here on In the Zone across West Michigan, Casey Ford, joined by the head coach of the Grand Valley State Lakers, Mr. Ric Wesley. Rick, good afternoon, evening, whenever you decide to watch this. It's been a while. We've done this a couple of times. We've done it here in studio. We've been up in Marquette at the Ramada Inn doing stuff for radio. But the summer's here, and is it a rest time at this point? I mean, last time I talked to you, we tried to get on about a month ago, and you're doing AAU stuff. So what's this summer, what does this do for you?
Well, people often think that college basketball coaches are off in the summer, and the reality of it is I think sometimes we're more busy than we are even during the winter, during our season. Recruiting is a all-year-round venture nowadays. A lot of our recruiting is outside the high school season. It's in the AAU. Everything gets lumped into the AAU world. So we're traveling a lot, trying to prospect, find some guys, future Lakers. And at the same time, we have 11 of our guys still on campus during our spring session and lifting weights and getting some workouts in, so on and so forth.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I know you had a son when I was here at WCET regularly that played here for Hudsonville. I know you had the West Trammell on your basketball team. I guess, what type of player fits the Grand Valley State system?
Well, you know, I try as a coach, and I think as most coaches do, I try to be as flexible as possible so we have a big tent, so to speak, that we can take in any number of different types of players. I think the first thing we look at a school like Grand Valley is the academic piece. You know, is it a young man who can handle the curriculum, the academic rigors of a school like Grand Valley, and at the same time be able to handle the time commitment that involves being a student athlete. So we always start with that piece, and then after that, you know, every year is a little different. Some years it's more obvious than others that you might need size, shooting, ball handling. So it's no one thing. It's sort of a multitude of things that we try to look at to try to come up with the best fit for the given need we'd have in a particular year.
Ric Wesley, Grand Valley State men's basketball coach, joins me right here on In the Zone across West Michigan. I'm Casey Ford, back again for some more filming on In the Zone across West Michigan. And Coach, we've seen Michigan Tech really step up their game the last few years. Ferris State has won the GLIAC. You have Lake State winning the GLIAC and Coach Hedinga. What are some of the things that they've done differently to kind of propel them, and what do you do to, I don't want to say match them, but try to get the athletes that they've been able to get?
Well, that's a good question, and it's a real challenge. You didn't even mention Saginaw Valley, who won our conference last year. I think during the time I've been in the GLIAC, I think we've seen the caliber of teams really improve. I think that certainly the depth on the men's side is much better than what it once was. We have a lot of good teams, and particularly in the North Division, which we're part of. So, you know, again, I think it's an ongoing challenge. There's no magic answer. We just try to continue to recruit the most talented guys we can, do the best job we can to develop them to their fullest, you know, as coaches. So, you know, we continue to hang in there. At one time, I thought we were, we had more obvious advantages in some of the other schools. I think to their credit, there's been some really renewed commitment on the part of a lot of schools in our conference. So maybe our margin for error isn't quite what it once was. But, you know, again, we're always looking for that magic combination of academic and athletic prowess as well as team chemistry to put it all together to come up with an outstanding team.
Now, Coach, you've seen some changes, obviously, in the GLIAC, and at one point Notre Dame was added, obviously Ashland and everybody in Ohio. We've done this a couple times where you're in Erie, Pennsylvania, coming back in snowstorms, things like that. I guess with the expansion of the GLIAC, is that a good or bad thing?
Well, it's expanded and now it's
contracted again.
You know,
yeah.
We've gone, and again, I guess I've been here long enough that I've seen it go both ways. So, you know, I don't think it really affects me one way or another as a coach. It's sort of, this is this is the challenge you've been given, and this is what you have to deal with. So I don't spend a lot of time analyzing it or trying to think it through. I just try to figure out how we adjust and how we find a way to be successful within it. This next year we're pretty we're kind of intact. We lose Malone next year, but then after that there is a big change as we lose some of the Ohio schools are going in another direction. So it will become a little bit of a smaller conference, although we're adding Davenport and Purdue Northwest, which are longtime NAIA schools that have had some success. So that will change the dynamic a little bit. But at the same time, those schools you mentioned earlier, the Michigan Techs, the Northern Michigans, the Lake States, the Saginaw Valleys, the Ferrises, the Northwoods. I mean, some of we've been together forever, and those continue to be great rivalries and challenging opponents.
Because I've lived down here in the Jenison area and now live in the Marquette area, I've seen the Northern Michigan versus Grand Valley State basketball games, the Michigan Tech versus Grand Valley State. I haven't been to Lake State at this point, but Steve Hedinga and I actually have a good relationship because I used to be the play-by-play announcer for the Grand Rapids Flight when he was the head coach of the Grand Rapids Flight. But those are remote locations, where Grand Valley State, I feel like, is kind of a destination location because you can go to Indianapolis, you can go to Detroit, you can go to Chicago more readily than what Michigan Tech can and what Northern Michigan can. I guess talk about the location of a Grand Valley State and luring a kid to Grand Valley.
Well, I'm certainly partial to our school, and I do think that you just look at the sheer numbers of our school and the success that our school has had. There's reasons for that, and one of the big reasons I do think is locations. West Michigan, Grand Rapids is a place that kids want to be, and families want to be. It's one of the few areas of our state that has grown in population. When you look at the West Michigan area, in addition to Grand Valley, we have so many other colleges here. I think in a 30-mile radius from our campus, I think there's over 70,000 college students. So, young people in our state, they want to get to Grand Rapids, and there's an energy and a excitement that's unique to this area. So certainly that's something we use in our recruiting, and that's a real positive. But that being said, I think all those other schools, they've been around a long time. They've thought it through. There's things about them, whether it's the engineering program at Michigan Tech, or maybe it's the campus life at Northern Michigan, or maybe it's the closeness to the community in the Sioux. I'm sure they all have unique selling points that they try to find a kid that matches up with what they're selling. But certainly Grand Valley has some real unique advantages and opportunities that we're very proud of.
Ric Wesley, men's basketball coach at Grand Valley State University, joins me, Casey Ford, right here on WCET-TV and In the Zone. And Coach, you see Bill Saul try to take a Ferris program. He did a really good job at Ferris. He moves him and his family up to Northern Michigan. And I feel like Northern Michigan's kind of been rebuilding for about 10 years. Used to be dominant powerhouse in the 90s and late 80s, and in the 70s they were really good. I guess, what's some of the challenges? Because you once took over a program here at Grand Valley State. What are some of the challenges of getting your players in and building it the way you want to do things?
Well, again, it's just that. It's getting your own thumbprint on the program. And I was fortunate when I came here, we had some pretty good players in the program, and had one great player already here in Kalista Suzuku. So I really reaped the benefits of that. Coach Saul's done a great job, certainly during his time at Ferris, and it's obvious that he's got that team moving in the right direction again. I mean, they had some big wins, late in the season last year. So even as he's gone through this rebuilding, you don't see his teams fading toward the end of the year. He's continued to keep the vibe going, keep the belief going. They've had some great additions with Eccles and Johnson, a couple of young freshmen last year. Perez has been a good addition. Kenny Williams is a developing big guy. So he's gotten more talent in there from the time he took over. And I know they've recruited well. They've got a lot of shooters coming in. So I would anticipate they'll continue to get better. probably the biggest challenge, just like our challenge, is everybody around you is good. So how do you, make hay, so to speak, in our conference when I think last year the second place team might have had 8 losses. It's not like anybody's just running away with our conference. So every win is just a significant accomplishment. And so as you're rebuilding a program, it's certainly tough in a league like ours.
Now, I guess let's bring that up because every win is very important. And it's always important to defend your home turf. When you have to go to an Ashland or you have to go to Pennsylvania, and then the next weekend you might have to go up and play Northern Michigan and Michigan Tech because it's always the same weekend that you guys play. What are the challenges of playing on the road and having your team ready? Because it's a good 9-10 hours up to Houghton, and that's a struggle in itself.
Well, it is, but everybody has to do it.
Well, and they have to come down here too.
They have to come down here. So, I mean, it's. I don't know that anybody has a magic answer how to do it. Certainly, the more talented you are, the easier it is to overcome those kinds of things. I think teams that are good relish the challenge, look at it as an opportunity. The teams that are bad kind of like, oh, here we go again. This is a tough bus ride. But it is what it is, and that's what our league is all about. And I think we're actually fortunate, probably us and Ferris, maybe Saginaw and Northwood, that we are kind of centrally located in our conference. So while we have some challenging road trips, we don't have as many maybe as the team on the edges, the Ashlands, the Michigan Techs, the Northerns. So it's part of it, and basketball in particular, because you have a lot of games, because you play in the middle of the week. Travel and the grind and so on and so forth is particularly a challenge in our sport. You try to make sure your guys are taking good care of themselves, try to feed them right, try to keep your practices moving, you try to talk to them about nutrition, all those kinds of things I think factor in, and generally as they get older, they understand that better, and that's why you see, I think, the veteran teams win in our conference.
Some of the things that obviously factor in, you have a comfort level playing at the field house. You guys have a nice backdrop. Obviously, when you go to Michigan Tech, it's a basketball gymnasium. Obviously, you got the stands everything around. For people that haven't been to the Berry Event Center in Northern Michigan, you're playing in an empty arena, and I don't mean that to kind of make a slam at Northern Michigan, but it seems like people, because the program has struggled a lot in the last 10 years, they haven't gone. But they don't have the backdrops what you have at the field house. And you're going to be going to Corners or Davenport, and they have a terrific new stadium or gymnasium there that's been built in the last 10 years. I guess when you're getting a team ready, you go to shoot around. What are some of the adjustments you have to make playing at those arenas?
Yeah, I don't know if
because everyone's different.
Yeah, everybody's different. I don't know if there's any particular thing we do. I've been here long enough now; it doesn't seem that unique. Now I've been there so many times. Again, I think it comes down to more the talent of the team you're playing than it does the venue.
Okay.
Certainly when Northern had the Volsey brothers, when they had their best teams, that was a tough place to play. Michigan Tech is always tough. I do think there are some places, probably Michigan Tech, Findlay, those venues are a little bit tighter, a little bit, probably better basketball facilities.
I say they're cozier.
Cozier atmosphere, yeah. Those places probably help those teams more in years where their talent isn't quite as strong as it is in other years to continue to be competitive. So I do think there's something to that. But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of unique places to go. Some of the places in our conference, Northwood, Saginaw Valley, Hillsdale, have really upgraded their facilities. And while we're not part of the Division I arms race, I do think there's still a challenge at our level to continue to maintain and upgrade your facilities. And as you do that, certainly programs benefit.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because you did talk about the arms race, and we mentioned Davenport, who's really come on the scene the last few years. And I know at some point they were trying to get into Division I hockey with or I don't want to say with the WCHA, but something like the WCHA. I guess with Davenport and the arms race that you talk about, I guess what are some of the things that Grand Valley needs to do to make their facility better with the field house?
Well, like I said, first of all, our campus is just
It's huge.
Ridiculously
It's awesome.
nice. I mean, so sometimes I feel like our campus is so nice that it's easy to think that maybe the nice things that we have in athletics aren't as nice as they really are by comparison.
Right.
But we're always constantly, our administration has been very supportive, so we're always doing things in our field house, in our locker rooms, in our training facilities to try to get better. What we have is very nice. I'm like any coach, I always want better. That's
absolutely.
just how the nature of the business. So, I think there'll be a time here, before too long. I don't know that there'll be a major upgrade to our field house, whether it's enclosing, the seating more or chair back seats or something like that. That's sort of on the agenda. It's just a matter of when and how we end up doing it.
Ric Wesley, men's basketball coach at Grand Valley State, joins me, Casey Ford, right here on In the Zone across West Michigan. We briefly talked about AAU and my thoughts on AAU. I'll get to those in just a second, but we have had conversations on the phone about how busy you are, obviously during the schedule or during the season and your off-season schedule being in the summer. With AAU, do you think it's watered down, too much basketball, oversaturated? I mean, can you really find that diamond in the rough now than what maybe 10 years ago when it was really the up and coming thing?
Yeah, that's a big topic. I mean, there's a lot of layers to that. I, as a coach, I love it when kids are playing basketball, obviously, but the out of school basketball, and we always call it AAU. It's probably not fair to the AAU organization.
Right.
We call everything AAU, but I think it kind of people
or travel league basketball.
Basketball. I always say it's sort of like dessert. A little dessert is okay.
Yeah.
And I like a bowl of ice cream now and then.
Right.
But when you have too much of that, it's just unhealthy. And over the years, it has grown into this, major buffet, so to speak, that it's almost taken the place of the nutritional meat and potatoes of the high school season. And so when your diet is all wrapped around just traveling weekend to weekend to play games and somebody tweeting about how wonderful you are and some coach or some entity constantly telling you how great you are and your parents, being just absorbed in where you're ranked and the list, and it just becomes an unhealthy situation. And kids, we create expectations that are impossible to meet. And that's the overhype about it. I feel like it's hurt more kids than it's helped them. And the way kids even look at the game, they're not as much into the work at developing their game as they are just playing the game all the time.
Right.
And there's a difference between working at the game and playing the game. Well, you can go play constantly and not get any better, but to get in the gym with a coach, or even better, I think, get in the gym by yourself. I just tweeted a thing last night. Jerry West had an old comment about one of the great things about basketball is how you really can work at the game by yourself. And I think there's some value in that, where you get in the gym, get out on the driveway, down at the park, letting your mind wander, being creative, and developing as a player.
We'll pick up this in a second. What is your Twitter handle?
Coach R underscore R Dub. Coach R Dub. There's a couple underscores in there. I don't know.
I'll find it.
You'll find it.
I'll find it. Here's what we're going to do. Well, I'll tweet out. Mine's at Real Casey Ford. I actually deactivated my Twitter after I left radio. I had 270 followers. And then I'm going to be starting something up here in the Upper Peninsula that I'm not going to release just yet. But I'm just like, well, I'll get Twitter back. And because I'm not on radio and can't do anybody a service at this point, I went from 270 followers. I'm at 36 right now.
We're going for quality,
yeah,
more than quantity.
But Real Casey Ford is my Twitter handler. I'll friend you and people can follow you. But obviously with Grand Valley State Athletics, I like, because Coach Joe Tanis of Muskegon Orchard View always retweets like inspirational stuff, like what you're not doing today
Yeah.
won't make you any better, things like that. I'm sure you do something like that as well.
It's hard to know how to use that.
Well,
Kids are so into that. You feel like you want to connect with kids and you want to get your message out there, but whether it's professional, personal, as a coach, you're always walking that fine line.
And let's get into that. How does a Twitter or Facebook hurt an athlete these days? Because when I was in school, we didn't have it. We didn't have picture phones. We didn't have the Twitter. We didn't have Facebook. When you recruit an athlete, how much are you looking at the Twitter and the Facebook to see the character of this kid?
Well, there's no question. That's become part of it, and it's amazing to me some of the, garbage or almost negative things that kids will put out there. But you learn a lot about them, and I hate to speak in generalities, but so many kids. I think the whole social media creates a young person quite often that's so self-absorbed, and again, they're a little out of control in terms of their ego, and it's just like a one-person PR thing that is sort of an unhealthy thing as it relates to sport.
And the reason I said we're going to go back to the stuff before, we were talking about being recruiting, and it kind of seems like a job interview all the time. This goes into the recruiting, and hey, coach, check this out. But then if you're putting people on blast on Twitter and Facebook and calling other people out, that obviously hurts your recruiting.
Yeah,
it could help to build it, but it could also
you have
hurt.
To be careful. I know it disappoints me when I'll have a prospect and his parents will come in, we'll sit down, we'll visit, and perhaps I'll make an offer, and I feel like this is really an important thing, and then, boy, a half hour later as they're going home, it's Twittered out there to the room, like, really? I mean,
Right.
Do you really feel like you needed to put my business and your business out there I thought this was sort of a decision. This was a process that we're involved. Why did you feel like you needed to bring the rest of the world into it?
Right.
And yet kids feel like there's almost a competition now, even with number of offers. Yeah, the classic, Alaska University was in to see me. They offered me. Feel so blessed. God is good. I'm like, well, really? I guess that's okay. But to me, as a coach, that's a turnoff to me because I feel like, well, you're really just putting it out there just to sort of boost your own ego and to show all your friends.
To get retweets and likes.
And I think at times kids don't even think, well, are you thinking about the offer? Are you going to do it? It's
Right.
not how many offers you get. It's finding the right opportunity. And I don't know, it just feels like to me when you feel the need to put all that out there constantly, to me at least, that's not a good sign. That's a sign that that's someone who's about something other than being a good player and finding a good opportunity.
And I think you would be okay with this as well. But when someone says, hey, talk to Coach Ric Wesley, I've decided I'm going to go to Grand Valley State. I think that's acceptable.
Well, that's fine because that's the end of the process. Yes. But the process, to play out every day and every interaction you have, I don't know. To me, again, it's sort of like the Facebook trying to create this idea that you're living this unbelievable life.
Right.
And again, I don't know.
Maybe we're just old school. Maybe we don't get it. We don't understand. We're too old for this stuff.
I try not to make too big a deal about it because it is part of the thing. But when you find that young person or that player who's not about that,
right, that
has been a really good sign to me. Someone who's not about self-promotion, and the parents are not about self-promotion. And well, Coach, I don't even do Facebook. Oh my God, that's almost a
it's like a big burden off your shoulders.
Well, I don't. That's the opposite of a red flag.
Right.
That's like, oh my gosh.
Right.
It's like when you find someone who plays multiple sports. I mean, those become really good indicators that, hey, this one is unique here. There's something here of substance. There's somebody here who doesn't need to constantly be told how good they are. And they'll be about work and proving themselves, so on and so forth.
We got a couple minutes remaining. Let's go back to this whole recruiting. Obviously, you see the travel leagues, the AAUs during the high school basketball season. You get to see some high school basketball kids. But how much film do you watch, or how many videotapes or DVDs do you get on a weekly basis of, hey, this is what I can bring to Grand Valley State?
Well, it's constant to the point where it's a lot of just, pass it on to my assistants, or
right.
You can't keep up with it. I'm so old now. I can remember when you first would start getting VHS tapes of players. And, geez, what do you do? You can't just throw this away.
That's how old school I am. I still say tapes. I mean, everybody does DVD and these disc cards and everything now.
They
But
send you CDs, and I thought, well, geez, you can't throw it away. This has value.
Right.
Well, now it's just a click of an email, and
Right.
the video comes in. It's so easy for people to do that it's really taken away from your desire as a coach to even explore that. Now, if it's somebody I know, it's in an area of particular interest to us or something, we probably will look at it. But again, with the AAU world, these kids, we see them so many times. I think it's almost you have to guard against overexposure, because eventually if you see them enough times, you're going to find something you don't like. So I feel like sometimes we need to not go see them so much, because you're going to pick them apart too much. But it's really important if you can see them with their high school team, see them some with the AAU, try to see them in a variety of settings. And then ultimately, even with that, it's getting to know them during the process, how they go about their business, how they interact with you and your staff and your team, is huge. It's maybe as important as their talent.
Now, how often can you get to a high school game when your season and the high school season run at the same time? And a lot of times you play on the same nights.
Yeah, that's the tough thing about basketball. Football has that down pretty good. They have their season, and then their season's over, and then they run out to the high schools.
Or they have a Friday night where they play on Saturday.
Yeah, and they take Fridays off. Yeah, so it's a little different. That's a real challenge for basketball coaches. And man, it feels like sometimes you're just burning it at both ends during the season. We get out, try to get out as much as we can Tuesday and Friday. Again, hard for me to complain because our location's not bad, but it gets tough for me on a Tuesday night to go to the east side. Well, if I got to rush out of practice at 5 o'clock to make a 7:30 game in the Detroit area, that gets to be a little bit of a challenge.
And the high school boys and girls play at the same time
Yeah,
now. So, I mean, the boys could play on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a Monday, Friday, and you're playing Tuesday, Thursday, or they're playing Tuesday, Thursday. I mean, it's all messed up. And I feel bad for you guys, because I feel like the stress levels there, I feel like that you guys need to come down a little bit, or you guys just don't sleep. I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, it gets tough. As I've gotten older, I feel like I can remember as a young coach always having to drive the head coach. I joke with my guys, I'm kind of that older head coach. Hey, I need one of you guys to go with me.
Right.
Because coming back from the game, the tough one is when you go to Chicago.
Yeah.
You get out of practice and it's a game in Chicago area, and because of the hour change, you can kind of make it there.
Right.
A lot of times you get in there, you're waiting, and then by the time the game gets over, it's really late coming back. So that can be a tough challenge. So you pick your spots, and some games are more important than others. Certainly the assistant coaches do a lot of that work. But yeah, I mean, there's good and bad things about every job. I feel fortunate to have the one I've got, but that's certainly not the easy part of it.
Rick, I welcome you back to the In the Zone studios across West Michigan. Obviously, it's not the Ramada in Marquette or the SDC or the Barry Event Center, but it's always a pleasure when we get together and talk a little Grand Valley State basketball. As always, I appreciate your time. Good luck in the upcoming season, and I'm sure we'll talk to you in the future.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy the summer.
All right. That's Ric Wesley, Grand Valley State men's basketball coach right here on In the Zone across West Michigan. Before we get things and leave things, I do want to promote this. The upcoming 4th of July parade and fireworks will be in Granville. WCET will have them right here on Channel 25. But if you're looking to get away, this is where the whole self-promotion comes in. If you're looking to get away, Munising, Michigan and Marquette, Michigan probably by far have the best fireworks. If you're looking for a destination, make sure you book sometime soon, because hotels fill up fast, especially in that Munising area. So if you're looking for probably the best fireworks, and remember, I was born and raised in Jenison. I know about the Grand Rapids fireworks and the Grand Haven fireworks. They do a great job. But if you want the absolute best fireworks, come up to the Upper Peninsula, go to Munising or Marquette, come say hi. You can always text. Or let's not say text. I don't want to throw my phone number out there. You know how that is, Coach. You can always tweet me, Real Casey Ford, on Twitter, or you can add me as a friend on Facebook. Just look for Casey Ford. You'll be able to find me. Until next time and next week, I'm Casey Ford. You've been watching In the Zone across West Michigan. So long, everybody.